Meet Seong. He wasn't just a gamer, he was a masochist. He spent years playing Survival Life, a game on nightmare difficulty so broken that only 5 people ever played it, and the other 4 quit to save their mental health. Seong was the last lunatic standing, grinding away until the server finally shut down. Heartbroken, he archived his gameplay, his precious digital children, and tried to join the real world by opening a restaurant. He thought his gaming days were over until a regular customer started blabbering about people awakening status windows. Seong laughed it off as nonsense, but curiosity got the better of him. He tried the command at home, and boom, a real status window popped up. He hadn't just unlocked a menu, he unlocked a portal to a giant forest, complete with a starter pack. But reality hit hard when he failed to catch a deer that ran faster than his will to live. Then, he saw it, a golden apple tree, identical to the one in his old game. That's when it clicked. The game was merging with reality, and the apocalypse was coming. Seong didn't panic. Okay, he panic shopped like a grandma on Black Friday, buying supplies to build a base inside the portal. He tested his combat skills against a goblin, winning only because the monster had worse aim than a stormtrooper. An owlbear almost turned him into lunch immediately after, but he managed to slip away. Eventually, he found the perfect cave for a hideout. The only problem? It was infested with kobolds. So Seong did what any rational gamer would do. He smoked them out like budget pest control and claimed the cave as his new kingdom.
The scene opens inside a tense government chamber where officials anxiously prepare for a national broadcast. An advisor informs the president that the address will begin in 1 minute, and he glances down at his watch, the glowing digits reading 8:59 a.m. Exhaustion lines his face as the countdown begins, each passing second tightening the atmosphere around him. Staff members hold their breath as the final moments tick away, 3 seconds, 2, 1, and the room falls silent. Bright studio lights ignite, illuminating the president as he steps to the podium, his expression heavy with the gravity of what he's about to announce. Across the nation, citizens rush to their televisions, gathering families and neighbors as screens flicker to life. With a composed voice masking deep anxiety, the president introduces himself and urges everyone to watch carefully, repeating his plea to ensure no one misses what he is about to reveal. Outdoor billboards and massive city screens switch to his live broadcast, and in less than a minute, viewership surges to unprecedented levels. The president's tone then shifts to something colder and resolute as he declares a state of emergency martial law, set to take effect at precisely 5 p.m. on July 16. Shock ripples through the nation and even through the officials standing behind him. He acknowledges the chaos and fear caused by the earlier lockdowns and thanks the public for their cooperation, but his next words deepen the unease. He explains that the army has already taken control of major media outlets, communication infrastructure, and primary road networks. One of his staff members nervously lights a cigarette, a small sign of how severe the situation has become. The president continues, revealing that political backlash is inevitable, yet insists that such drastic measures were necessary. Finally, he confesses the true reason behind the martial law: he wanted the nation to meet its fate with a dignified end. His eyes lock onto the camera, weary and hollow, as he states that by now, the citizens must already understand the truth. The scene ends with his expression lingering, haunted, resigned, and filled with the weight of an unspoken catastrophe. The president's grim expression deepens as he delivers the unbelievable truth: the catastrophic scenario from the video game Survival Life is unfolding in reality. Images of a massive, burning asteroid streaking across the sky flash across every screen, mirroring the exact disaster predicted in the game. He explains that the asteroid, named Jambai, was detected at dawn by the U.S. military, but every attempt to intercept it had failed. Moments later, it crashed into the sea near Okinawa, sending shockwaves across Japan. The impact caused catastrophic destruction, leveling buildings and engulfing entire districts in fire. But the devastation didn't end there. As the president speaks, scenes reveal the horrifying aftermath: survivors staggering through ruined streets, their bodies trembling, eyes clouding with a terrifying hunger. The spores released from the asteroid begin infecting the population, transforming people, one after another, into zombies. And with a chilling calmness, the president announces that these same spores will reach their own country by 1 p.m. today, marking the beginning of their own apocalypse. He steadies himself and addresses the nation once more, declaring that they cannot stop what is coming, but they can prepare for it. From gathered research, they've discovered that a small number of individuals, known as the awakened, may be immune to zombification. Anticipating their crucial role in humanity's survival, the government has prepared special resources and shelters. Digital maps highlight designated time shelters across the city, where citizens are instructed to evacuate immediately. Finally, the president unveils survival guidelines, including information on the monsters that will appear during the early stages of the outbreak and how to deal with them. He promises that aircraft will distribute these instructions again via flyers for anyone without access to electronic updates. His voice, though steady, carries a heavy sorrow as he concludes, fully aware that the world as they know it is about to collapse. The president's final message grows somber as he announces that all thermal power plants across the country will soon shut down. Standing beneath the harsh studio lights, he admits his shortcomings but believes he did what was necessary in humanity's final moments. His voice softens, almost trembling, as he tells the nation it has been an honor to serve alongside them. He thanks the anonymous informant who predicted the exact doomsday date, then ends the broadcast with a final wish, that they may all meet again, alive and well. As the transmission flickers off, the city falls quiet. In a small, dimly lit room, a lone survivor grips his remote, staring at the now silent screen. A faint sigh escapes him, he had hoped the end would never come. But with reality collapsing outside, he steadies himself. If the apocalypse is already here, then he will survive it, just as he has trained for, as a veteran of countless simulations. Strapping on his gear, he steps into the ruined streets with a determined glare, his small white dog trotting faithfully beside him. Explosions echo in the distance, and the once bustling city now lies buried under smoke and destruction. "You ready?" he asks softly, and the dog barks in response. Far ahead, a small group of survivors waits. Among them, Peak, short-tempered and loud, complains that losing today's match will make it his third defeat in a row. His companion Gongju, dressed in playful bunny ears but wielding a massive bat, teases him by saying that 3 straight losses would basically make him a yellow bean. Another survivor, oddly cheerful in a strawberry patterned dress and cat ears, laughs at their banter amid the chaos. Despite the world ending around them, the group maintains a strange, almost comedic dynamic. Together, they prepare to head into a swarm of zombies, their bizarre personalities a sharp contrast to the grim wasteland stretching out before them. As the group prepares for battle, another eccentric survivor steps forward, Kimbapcha, a smug blonde wearing a traditional performer's hat and an infuriating grin. With a tone dripping in confidence, he mocks the others, claiming they're nothing without their dramatic tricks. His teasing sparks irritation, especially from Gongju, who's already itching to fight. While the banter grows louder, Peak finally snaps, demanding they start already. With their weapons raised and adrenaline high, the team charges toward the horde of zombies. Kimbapcha, amused by their impatience, offers them a so-called favor, a 1-minute head start. His words strike a nerve, pushing Peak and Gongju to sprint even harder. As they dash forward, the scene shifts into a chaotic blend of movement and violence. The group's actions mirror the mechanics of survival life, the VR game the apocalypse is now mimicking. In this world, zombies and fantasy monsters coexist, and the difficulty is so brutal it once made even elite Korean gamers tremble. The battle erupts instantly. The survivors strike down zombies with swift, practiced motions while dodging monstrous blows from mutated creatures. Peak curses as he's knocked back by a towering beast, frustrated at becoming a meat shield yet again. Despite the chaos, the game-like rules remain the same: they fight, survive, and level up. The narrative rewinds briefly, explaining how the VR game had skyrocketed to the top of global charts upon release, praised for its ruthless complexity before quickly losing players due to its unforgiving nature. Back in the present, tension peaks as an enormous monster charges toward the team. Peak hesitates, unsure of their next move, until Kimbapcha casually announces that the 1-minute head start is over. With a press of a detonator, explosions erupt across the battlefield, hurling flames and rubble into the sky. The creature collapses under the blast, weakened but not yet finished. Kimbapja leaps into action. "Thanks for the offer," he says, like he's accepting a free snack. He pulls back the glowing bowstring. A crystal arrow forms instantly, bright, sharp, overflowing with power. And with a single, clean strike, he finishes the monster off, claiming the victory as stylishly as he bragged he would. After the explosive battle, the group regathers on a ruined rooftop overlooking the desolate cityscape. With the sun dimming behind broken skyscrapers, the survivors casually lounge on the ground as if the apocalypse were nothing more than a lazy afternoon. They complain about how stale the game has become and how there's nothing left to do. Even the monsters no longer excite them. Gongju sprawls out dramatically, whining for something, anything, to stimulate his brain. Peak grumbles that maybe the servers should just shut down for the day. Their strawberry-themed teammate agrees wholeheartedly, while Kimbapja smugly claims this is why he told them not to rush in the first place. Restless, they consider playing another game, but even that feels tiring. Just then, someone notices a new message in the global chat, a rare sight in this dead game. A username marked with a PC tag appears, signaling a genuine newbie logging in for the first time. The group immediately becomes excited, circling around the screen like hungry predators smelling fresh prey. They cheer, laugh, and plot mischievous ways to greet the newcomer. Their enthusiasm skyrockets as the newbie thanks them for a guide, making them feel like the game is suddenly alive again. 2 hours later, the mood shifts. The entire squad stares at Kimbapja's monitor in disbelief, their expressions frozen. The newbie, still stuck in the tutorial, sends increasingly desperate messages about how impossibly difficult the game is. Their excitement turns into awkward silence as the newbie gives up and disconnects. Peak slaps his forehead, complaining that this is exactly how every new player ends, quitting before even reaching level 1. Gongju crosses his arms, questioning why the developers keep updating the game but refuse to make it any easier. Their conversation drifts into comedic frustration as they wonder what kind of twisted logic drives the game's creators. Just another ordinary moment in this brutal world disguised as a game. As dusk settles over the broken skyline, the survivors decide to call it a day. One by one, they announce their logging off, stretching lazily as the orange light bathes their avatars. Their strawberry-dressed teammate cheerfully wishes everyone a good night, while Gongju and Peak quietly acknowledge him with tired nods. Blonde Fighter calls out. "You'll be online tomorrow, right?" The survivor pauses, shrugs. "Probably." A strange silence hangs in the air, an unspoken tension the group can't quite name. Eventually, they all choose to return to reality. Gongju logs off first, followed by Peak. The HUD dissolves around them, their bodies turning into shimmering data streams. That's when it hits the narrator, their journey together might be ending. He had always hoped they'd join his streams more often, but he never wanted to admit how much he relied on their presence. As the others logged in less and less, he found himself playing alone, recording gameplay videos just to pretend they were still there. Outside the game, their real lives pulled them away, but he remained, clinging to the virtual world that held their memories. Months passed. He streamed day and night, waiting for their usernames to appear, but the notifications never came. Massive new updates dropped, new monsters, grotesque mutated versions of zombies, even higher-tier bosses, but his friends didn't return. The difficulty curve softened, the early game improved, and yet Sura, the VR world born from survival life, eventually dwindled down to a single active player, him. Then came the announcement. As he was battling alone, a system message appeared, cold and emotionless: survival life would be permanently shut down in 1 week. The developers thanked the remaining players and expressed their regret. The message felt like the final nail in the coffin. Panic and sadness crashed over him. He had wanted to defeat a certain monster with his friends before quitting. Now, the game itself was quitting before he could. A wave of despair broke through as he ripped off his gear and stopped recording. For a moment, it felt as if the world he had devoted years to was crumbling around him. And as he stared at the shutdown notice, he couldn't help but wonder, had the game been waiting for him to finally give up. After quitting the game for good, he removed his headset and stared at the device that had once been his entire world. With a heavy heart, he deleted his streaming account and the YouTube channel that held over 15,500 hours of his gameplay. He carefully stored away all the hard drives filled with memories, unable to throw them out but determined to move on. From that moment, Kang Seong-ho, formerly known online as Kimbapcha, finally began living a real life again. 3 months later, he had settled into a quiet, grounded routine. Now working full-time at his small snack shop, he spent his days cooking tteokbokki and rolling fresh kimbap for customers. Business was steady, the kitchen was warm, and the food he made with his own hands carried a comforting simplicity. The shop occupied the first floor of the house he inherited after losing his parents during high school, while the second floor served as his home. Despite the hardships of his past, he had built something stable, something his younger self would have never imagined. Among his regulars was a cheerful, pretty hairdresser named Mi-kyung, who visited almost every day. Her bright smile and casual friendliness always brought life into the shop. Seong-ho couldn't deny she was attractive, everyone could see that, but he never pushed the thought further. She often complimented his food, stopping by after work with flushed cheeks and an easy laugh. One day, she excitedly showed him a trending online rumor. People claimed that saying, "status window," out loud would make a game-like stat screen appear in real life. She had already tried it with no luck, but the post's comments section insisted it worked. Seong-ho chuckled politely, more focused on serving her order than bizarre internet rumors. But the way she shyly held out her phone, the slight blush on her cheeks, it made the moment strangely endearing. Little did he know, that silly rumor was about to change everything. That night, after serving customers and cleaning up the shop, Seong-ho decided to test Mi-kyung's silly rumor for fun. Laughing to himself, he shouted, "Status window," expecting nothing, only to freeze as a blue light exploded in front of him. A holographic panel materialized out of thin air. Shocked, he staggered back, his heart pounding. The impossible had actually appeared. When he dared to look again, he saw a familiar layout: health, strength, agility, perception, the exact stat page from Survival Life. Even the trait "Open Private Portal" was listed. His hands trembled. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a hallucination. This was the game, in real life. Driven by both fear and fascination, he spoke the command displayed on the screen. "Open portal." A swirling vortex erupted in the middle of his room, crackling with blue lightning just like the labyrinth gates he had entered thousands of times in VR. Seong-ho stared at it with awe and dread. Could this really be the Survival Life system manifesting in reality? It shouldn't be possible. But the evidence was right in front of him. Trying to rationalize it, he told himself it had to be nonsense. If this were real, there would at least be news about the asteroid Unjambai, he muttered. But when he checked his phone, his blood ran cold. A real NASA article popped up: an asteroid with the same name was officially being monitored. Experts claimed the risk was near zero, but Seong-ho had played enough to know what that meant in-game: the apocalypse trigger. Panic surged through him. No, it could still be a coincidence. But another part of him whispered, what if it's real? His eyes slowly shifted back to the glowing portal. If there was any proof, any confirmation, it would be on the other side. Seong-ho stands silently in front of the glowing blue portal, its light flickering across his face. He reaches his hand out, inches away from touching the mysterious energy wall that has appeared in his home. Something about it feels unreal, yet eerily familiar. If there's any proof about what's coming, any confirmation that the game world has crossed into reality, it has to be inside this portal. Just as he's about to step through, his instincts scream at him to wait. His hand freezes mid-air. Entering blindly might be the fastest way to die. He pulls back, cold sweat forming on his forehead. Isn't it too dangerous to go in without a plan? He thinks, breathing deeply while the shimmering blue light pulses behind him. Changing his approach, he kneels beside the portal. If he can't enter safely, he can at least test the other side. He grabs the only tool nearby, a ladle, and slowly pushes it through the swirling energy at the bottom of the portal, trying to feel the ground on the other side. His heart pounds as the ladle disappears into the unknown. When he pulls it back, he stares in disbelief. It's covered in dirt. Just dirt, ordinary soil. That single detail means everything. The other side isn't a deadly labyrinth or monster den. It might actually be a real location on Earth. Could this portal be like a warp, he wonders, the realization making his pulse quicken. Determined now, he prepares what little he can. He grabs his backpack, checks the straps, and confirms he has done the minimum safety check possible. There's no turning back. With one deep steadying breath, he stands before the portal again and whispers to himself. Shall I go inside? Then, he steps forward. Light engulfs him. The world spins. And suddenly, he finds himself standing under a bright sky, surrounded by lush greenery and vibrant colors. The wind is crisp, the sunlight warm, and the scenery breathtaking. Leaves flutter around him as he stares in awe. Whoa, is this for real? The wind carries the smell of greenery, and a small blue bird chirps on a nearby branch. Everything feels overwhelmingly real. There's no cell phone signal, confirming he's far from civilization, or maybe even far from his own world. Staying cautious, Seong-ho begins marking trees with simple square symbols using a white marker, creating a path he can follow back. For now, he has no way to confirm where he is, but one thing is certain, he must explore carefully and collect undeniable proof of this strange new reality. And so, with steady steps and rising tension, Seong-ho ventures deeper into the unknown. As Seong-ho continues walking through the vast, unfamiliar forest, exhaustion begins to take over. Sweat drips down his face as he mutters in frustration, wondering why this place feels endless. The heavier his steps become, the stronger his desperation grows. He just wants something, anything, to appear and break the monotony. And then, without warning, a bright red slash of energy cuts through the air beside him, forcing him to stumble back in shock. When he opens his eyes, a majestic creature stands before him, a glowing white valley deer, its antlers shimmering with ethereal blue light. The sudden system window identifying the creature leaves him stunned. If there's a system interface here, then maybe this place isn't Earth after all. The deer stares deeply at him, almost intelligently, but eventually turns away and trots off without aggression. Breathing a shaky sigh of relief, Seong-ho realizes that although he hasn't found solid proof of an apocalypse yet, the creatures here are undeniably unusual. If there were stone monkeys or humped boars, monsters straight out of survival life, that would be another story. Still, the appearance of the valley deer sparks a disturbing suspicion he tries to push down. This place might truly be connected to the game. He forces himself to ignore the possibility, clinging to hope that humanity isn't facing a disaster. But that fragile hope shatters when he stumbles upon a radiant golden tree. Floating gently among its glowing branches is a sun apple, just like the one from the game. Shocked, he approaches and plucks the shining fruit, hesitating for only a moment before taking a bite. After taking a bite of the radiant sun apple, Seong-ho feels a warm surge spread through his body, and a system message confirms that his stamina has been restored, exactly the same effect the item had in the game, survival life. Shocked, he realizes this is undeniable proof. The glowing fruit, the system notification, the monsters he encountered, everything points to one conclusion. As he sits on the forest floor catching his breath, he thinks back to the goblin droppings he found earlier, another sign he tried to ignore. With his hands gripping his hair in frustration, he finally accepts the truth, the end is coming. His eyes harden with grim resolve. Immediately after returning through the portal, he rushes to his computer and pulls out the old hard drives containing years of gameplay footage. He watches the early game content with a sinking feeling, remembering how he once streamed and recorded everything simply because he enjoyed the game. It never occurred to him that this data would become a survival manual for the real world. He reviews the timeline of the game's apocalypse, the alien asteroid Unjambi, which fell near Okinawa on July 20th, triggering the rapid spread of zombie spores. By comparing the dates on the news footage, he calculates that only 32 days remain until the end begins in reality. As he continues studying the mechanics, he recalls the game's most hated feature. The Iron Death disease, a phenomenon that caused every metal object to corrode and crumble. The disease swept through infected regions hours after zombies appeared, reducing entire cities to Stone Age conditions. Cars disintegrated, towers collapsed, and survival became a nightmare. In the game, different regions recovered at different speeds, often taking 6 months to a full year for metal to stabilize again. But now, Seong-ho realizes one thing: the Iron Death disease might not affect him the same way, because the trait he obtained, Private Portal, should theoretically prevent the disease from passing through. With that slim advantage in mind, he spends all the money he has saved up, buying weapons, food, tools, medical gear, and every supply he needs for the coming collapse. Meanwhile, he checks an online awakened community, only to find people joking around, doubting the situation, or bragging about abusing their powers for money. Their carefree attitude frustrates him. No one understands what's coming. At sunrise, he continues stocking up on essentials, and on his way home he finalizes a private purchase, a 60-pound hunting bow. The weight of the weapon in his hand seals his resolve. The apocalypse is coming, and he refuses to face it unprepared. A sudden doubt hits Seong-ho as he finishes his errands. Maybe he's overreacting, maybe the apocalypse won't come after all. But instead of hesitating, he pushes forward, returning home and immediately hanging a sign on his shop door announcing that it will be closed for months, due to remodeling. Standing in the street, he feels a mix of dread and exhaustion, wondering how everything in his life changed overnight. Mi-kyung approaches him with concern, asking if he's really shutting the store down. He lies with a tired smile, telling her it's just old and needs repairs. She playfully guesses he must have made a lot of money, but he dodges the comment and tries to excuse himself. She stops him for a moment as if wanting to say something important, but then shyly backs away, wishing him goodbye. As she leaves, he silently wonders what she wanted to say, but he forces himself to stay quiet. He can't afford distractions now. Back home, he activates the portal again, blue flames swirling around him as he steels his resolve. He reminds himself of his strength. He was never the best fighter in survival life, but he was a strategist, a planner who survived through precision, analysis, and preparation. Because in that world, stats weren't gained through leveling up but through real experience, hunting, and exploration. Determined to build his physical ability from scratch, he enters the forest and begins practicing with his new bow. At first he doubts whether he can even draw it, but to his surprise the string pulls back smoothly, far easier than he expected. Excitement sparks in his eyes as he fires again and again, growing more confident with each shot. His memories of a grinning instructor yelling, "Take a shot," echo in his mind, pushing him to focus. Under the warm forest light, he knocks another arrow, draws the bowstring back, and releases, marking the beginning of his training for the apocalypse to come. With his training underway, Seong-ho steps into the forest at dawn, drawing his bow with surprising finesse. Each arrow slices through the air with clean precision, thudding into distant trees as if guided by instinct. Even he seems shocked at his own skill, almost joking that he must have been Legolas in a past life. Though his arms tremble from the strain, he can manage 5 strong shots before fatigue sets in, which is far better than expected. With basic preparations complete, he moves on to the real goals, first, testing whether he can actually hunt monsters with his current abilities, and second, building a hidden storage shelter deep within this world to secure his growing supplies. He reminds himself not to take unnecessary risks until his weapons and equipment arrive, but temptation strikes the moment he spots something gleaming among the branches. Hanging from a high tree is a golden nest, and without hesitation he climbs up to claim the shimmering fruit inside, marveling at how unbelievably lucky he is. As he continues marking trees and exploring, he reflects on how meticulous preparation kept him alive during all his years as a veteran in Sura. Following his own trail, he eventually finds what he's been searching for, goblin droppings. His expression sharpens. In the game, goblins always traveled in groups, so finding a lone pile was strange, evidence of an outcast, a stray goblin separated from its pack. And that makes it the perfect target for testing real combat. Examining the seeds inside the dung, he confirms the creature hasn't been eating properly, matching the behavior of an isolated monster. Determined, he vows to track it down no matter what, because chances to fight a manageable enemy like this are rare. As night falls, wolf howls echo through the forest, signaling he's near the valley. Moving cautiously through the dark underbrush, he suddenly freezes. Something darts past his peripheral vision. When he turns, there it is. A small, green, snarling figure crouched in the shadows. A real goblin, just a few meters away, he immediately recognizes its form, its posture, its movements, identical to the weak monster he'd fought countless times in Sura. A system window flashes in his memory, monster number 1, goblin. Low-tier species. Weapons, spears and poison darts. These creatures were infamous for paralyzing their victims and tormenting them for sport. That's exactly why he chose the bow as his first weapon. But this one is different. The goblin crouched before him is old, its body frail and empty-handed, likely exiled from its group. If he stays calm, he believes he can take it down. He draws his bowstring with trembling fingers, whispering to himself to steady his breath. The arrow flies, and though he aimed for the head, it instead pierces the goblin's shoulder, sending it screeching in pain. Seong-ho pushes forward, trying to finish it quickly, but the goblin isn't going down easily. Bloodied but enraged, it charges with surprising ferocity. Seong-ho meets it with a dagger, but the clash sends sparks flying as the two struggle violently. His blade breaks under the goblin's strength, and he takes a vicious cut across his arm. Gritting his teeth, fueled by fear and adrenaline, he tackles the goblin to the ground. The creature thrashes wildly, clawing and snapping at him, until Seong-ho finally manages to drive the broken weapon deep into its throat. The goblin gurgles weakly as its life fades, and a brilliant system notification appears before his eyes: you have acquired 2 points. His chest heaves as he stares down at the corpse beneath him, overwhelmed. And then the shock breaks into trembling laughter. He did it, he survived his first real monster hunt. After killing the goblin, Seong-ho sits in the quiet darkness, his hands still trembling when he notices a small pouch lying nearby, loot dropped by the monster. When he opens it, a soft blue glow spills out, revealing powdered herbs and a small bottle of vegetable oil. He recognizes the items instantly. In Sura, combining these ingredients created a basic healing ointment. If a goblin group finds the body, he'll be hunted down. And leaving it out in the open risks something far worse: the body transforming into a bone creeper, an undead horror that rises from neglected monster remains. Determined, he digs furiously under the moonlight until the corpse is completely buried. Exhausted but relieved, he steps away, only to spot 2 bright red trout gliding in the nearby stream. His eyes widen in shock. In the game, red trout only lived in one specific biome, the territory of a mid-tier monster known as the owlbear. The realization hits him too late. A chilling gust sweeps through the valley, and the air grows heavy. He turns slowly, dread creeping up his spine. A massive shadow looms behind him. Then, glowing red eyes snap open, burning with feral intensity. The towering creature, half owl, half bear, rises from the darkness, its feathers bristling and its breath shaking the ground. Owlbear. Seong-ho freezes as the monster stares him down. Compared to goblins, this creature is a nightmare, far beyond anything he can fight. Seong-ho remembers a moment from his streaming days, when he appeared on camera as Kimbapcha, cheerfully greeting his viewers with bright red eyes full of excitement. Back then, he would stand in a virtual classroom, presenting detailed summaries of every monster that lived in the forest, proudly showing the holographic displays he'd prepared. He worked hard for his audience, and they responded with laughter, donations, and constant chatter, like Bulsangman, who would donate just to see Seong-ho's reaction, or Gukbapman, who turned every discussion into a reference to soup. Even the viewer with the ever-changing, barking dog username made him smile. Together they debated goblins, kobolds, and the deadly bone creeper, but he always warned them that the true threats, the monsters that ruled the forest, were the werewolves and the terrifying owlbears. He explained how an owlbear's territory signaled that the ecosystem was balanced, his tone confident and playful. Those were good times, and the memory hits him like a punch. Standing face to face with a real owlbear now, Seong-ho's expression twists into shock. His mind reels as fear freezes his body, his thoughts spiraling as if his life is flashing before his eyes, but he snaps out of it. This isn't some emotional farewell, it's a harsh reminder from his past self, yelling at him to think. The monstrous owlbear towers above him, its crimson eyes glowing, yet it hasn't attacked. Seong-ho notices something crucial: owlbears tear apart anything they see when hungry, but this one isn't moving. He realizes the creature isn't agitated because of him, it's agitated because he unknowingly entered the monster's feeding grounds, the place where the rare red trout swim. That means the owlbear isn't enraged, just territorial. And if that's the case, he has only one possible way out. Clenching his jaw, he prepares himself mentally, knowing the method is insane, reckless, and probably suicidal, but it's the only option if he wants to live. Summoning every ounce of courage, he sprints forward, yelling to provoke the beast. The owlbear's crimson eyes widen, its monstrous head twisting toward him as it charges. Seong-ho recalls everything he memorized from years of playing survival life. The owlbear's night vision is unmatched, but its biggest weakness is light. There is only one timing, one opening, and one chance to blind it. As the monster lunges, he leaps into position and raises his phone, its screen glowing in the darkness. With a desperate shout, he shines the full brightness directly into its eyes. The owlbear shrieks violently, its enormous body rearing back as beams of white light explode across its vision. Seong-ho pours every bit of strength into holding his stance, blasting the creature with the only weapon he has. Then, everything goes white. The scene cuts abruptly. Later, Seong-ho wakes up in his bed, his phone ringing beside him. His entire body aches as if it were crushed. Confused, he wonders if he really passed out right after escaping. As he rubs his sore neck, reality hits him. He survived a goblin fight and an encounter with an owlbear in a single night, and the moment he tries to get out of bed, his legs give out and he crashes face first onto the floor. His stomach growls painfully, he hasn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Crawling toward his backpack, he pulls out the golden sun apple he saved earlier and takes a bite. Warm energy flows through him, accompanied by a glowing system message confirming his stamina has been restored. Revived and relieved, he washes up and heads out to eat. But the moment he sits down at a restaurant, he freezes. Mi-kyung is sitting right across from him, smiling brightly. She casually explains that this place is her second favorite restaurant and that she thought it'd be nice to have someone to eat with. The sudden friendliness catches him off guard, especially when she brings up the topic he hoped she'd forgotten, the status window. She leans forward excitedly, asking if he tried the awakening method she mentioned before. Seong-ho forces a nervous smile and lies, telling her it didn't work for him. Inside, he knows he can't reveal the truth. His trade isn't combat-oriented, and exposing himself during an upcoming apocalypse would be the same as shouting for monsters to come eat him. The world isn't safe enough to trust anyone with that information, not yet. As Mi-kyung continues talking, proudly showing him strange news articles she thinks prove awakenings are real, he feels conflicted. She's too innocent, too pure, and far too curious for her own good. Then, with an embarrassed expression, she suddenly apologizes and admits she lied about something. Seong-ho stiffens, unsure what she's about to reveal. He thinks she genuinely seems like a good person, but he knows she's struggling to gather the courage to speak her mind. He gently reassures her, telling her she doesn't have to explain anything yet. There's still time, and whenever she feels brave enough, she can tell him then. With that, he heads home. As he approaches his house, he finds a delivery truck unloading large boxes at his front gate. Everything he ordered for the upcoming apocalypse is finally arriving. The delivery man greets him with a bright smile, and the protagonist thanks him for the hard work, relieved that the crucial supplies are here. He immediately begins sorting and moving the equipment. Items meant for long-term survival go up to the rooftop storage, while essentials for today's mission are carried straight to the second floor. After catching his breath, he lays out the gear he'll need. Spread across the floor is a full survival kit, gas mask, fireproof suit, pepper spray, fire axe, gasoline, a plumbing pipe, a fire extinguisher, and a portable telescope. Today's mission is simple but vital. He must secure a proper hideout, no matter what. With monsters coming soon, a safe base will become the difference between life and death. Dressed in his fireproof suit and armed with an axe, he activates the glowing blue portal. The swirling gate opens like a shimmering window into another world. Stepping through, he enters the forest of the survival life dimension once more. Finding a potential hideout doesn't take long. While searching for the old goblin earlier, he had spotted something suspicious, a narrow opening in the rocks partially hidden behind thick bushes. Now, pushing the leaves aside, he sees it clearly, a small cave entrance, the perfect size for a future bunker. He studies it from a distance with his telescope. Inside, the ground shows several distinct footprints, shaped like small humanoid creatures. Kobold tracks. This discovery fills him with excitement. Luck is finally on his side. A smile forms on his face as he realizes the cave is currently occupied by low-tier kobolds, nocturnal monsters who will be sleeping soundly during the day. This works in his favor. His plan, devised back when he first played Survival Life, is effective against all low-tier monsters, but especially deadly to kobolds. Their sensitivity to smoke turns simple firewood into a lethal weapon. He checks the wind direction, ensuring it blows inward toward the cave. Perfect. The kobolds will have no chance if the smoke flows inside. Peeking through the telescope again, he confirms the creatures are asleep, their bodies slumped across the cave floor. He quickly begins gathering dry branches and fallen wood from the forest floor. Though tougher than expected, he manages to gather enough. With the bundle in his arms, he returns to the cave entrance. After arranging the firewood carefully near the opening, he steps back and assesses his work. This should be enough, he thinks, satisfied. The trap is ready. Soon, the cave, and the kobolds inside, will be his. With the firewood stacked neatly at the cave entrance, Seong-ho uncaps a bottle of gasoline and pours it over the pile, the liquid soaking deeply into the branches. He prepares to ignite the trap when a sudden sound behind him freezes his entire body. From inside the cave, two kobolds stumble out, groggy, confused, and blinking against the daylight. Their reptilian eyes narrow as they spot him. Seong-ho forces an awkward smile, giving a tiny wave as if greeting strangers on a morning walk. The kobolds hiss violently in reply. He reacts instantly. With a sharp pivot, he grabs his axe and lunges forward, striking before the creatures can fully awaken. One kobold collapses with a single blow. But something strange happens. A blue system notification flashes before his eyes. The attack inflicted a drowsiness status effect, making a clean one-hit kill possible. His level rises, granting him 4 new stat points. There's no time to celebrate. More kobolds are beginning to stir inside the cave. He quickly flicks a lighter and drops it onto the gasoline-soaked firewood. Flames burst upward with a loud roar, sending thick smoke rushing into the cave. In Survival Life, all low-tier monsters shared one weakness: they were extremely vulnerable to sudden environmental changes. Smoke, bright light, loud noise, anything unexpected disrupted their senses completely. Burning the kobolds directly would be faster, but the aftermath would make the cave unlivable. Smoking them out was cleaner, and far easier to manage. Inside the cave, the monsters panic. Their yellow eyes shake violently as they cough through the spreading smoke. Seong-ho watches from behind a tree as the kobolds stagger out one by one, disoriented and half-blind. This is the moment his strategy hinges on: lure them out, weaken them with confusion, and then finish everything in one decisive strike. But fewer kobolds emerged than he expected. A standard pack is usually 7, yet only 3 have stumbled outside. Annoyed but focused, he prepares for the kill. The first kobold charges him, still shaking off the effects of smoke. Seong-ho meets it head-on, plunging his weapon downward and neutralizing it in an instant. The other 2 regain clarity just enough to realize what's happening and roar in rage as they surge toward him. Wearing his gas mask and fireproof suit, Seong-ho tightens his grip and refuses to back down. He met them with swift, decisive strikes, cutting them down one by one. Even when one lunged wildly at him, screeching in rage, he dodged sharply, countering with a clean arc of his blade. Another attempted to flank him, but a blast of pepper spray sent it writhing and shrieking in agony before he finished it off. Soon, only the kobold leader remained, a larger, more rugged creature trembling pathetically on its knees, eyes full of fear. Seong-ho stared down at it with cold resolve, silently remarking how pitiful the supposed leader looked before raising his axe high overhead. With a final, merciless strike, he ended the creature's life, claiming the cave as his own future base. Exhausted but victorious, he collapsed near the smoldering firewood, catching his breath as system notifications flickered before him. His status now displayed a point total that felt both nostalgic and surprising, exactly like the game, complete with the annoying exhaustion debuff. Even though leveling up no longer granted him stat points, it still unlocked critical convenience systems, making today's progress extremely valuable. More importantly, he now had what he needed most: a secure hideout deep within the otherworldly forest, one that only he could access thanks to his private portal trait. Smiling to himself, Seong-ho stepped into the newly cleared cave, though the stench and debris forced him to sigh in annoyance. Before anything else, he would have to clean out the kobold's filthy nest. After securing his new hideout deep inside the otherworldly cave, Seong-ho immediately begins cleaning the place, dragging out piles of kobold junk while grumbling about the filth they left behind, exhausted from the earlier fight. The cavern is about 15 meters deep, small for a base, but enough to work with. Still sore and worn out, he forces himself to scrub, sweep, and clear away debris, muttering that cleaning after monsters should count as torture. Once the space is finally usable, he activates his private portal, slipping back to Earth and making use of its unique ability to interact across dimensions without restrictions. Testing its limits, he discovers something unbelievable: he can physically fix positions between the two realms and even run a hose from Earth into the otherworld, watching water flow through the dimensional gate as if it were a normal doorway. The realization leaves him stunned: this system is far more powerful than he imagined. Returning to the cave, he looks around with pride. After hours of cleaning, the place finally resembles a proper shelter. Still, there's more to do: bloodstains to scrub off the walls, concrete to pour for supply storage, and mortaring that will take several days to set. As he surveys the area, something glowing catches his eye. Embedded in the cave walls are lumenstone and ignis stone, rare, valuable materials essential for new players in survival life, now shining brightly before him like a jackpot. Holding them in his hands, he laughs in disbelief. This cave isn't just a hideout, it's a gold mine. He wonders aloud if he should begin mining once construction is finished, already imagining the benefits. The next morning, day 29 dawns, and he wakes up groaning in pain, every muscle aching from overexertion. Inspecting his arms, he notices dozens of small cuts he never realized he had. Fortunately, none are severe enough to waste a precious solar apple. With a table full of supplies, apples, herbs, his knife, and the glowing stones, he takes a brief moment to breathe, knowing he has a long month ahead before the apocalypse arrives. After returning home, Seong-ho decides to test a simple but essential healing method he remembers from survival life. He mixes guaca powder with vegetable oil in equal amounts, stirring until the mixture thickens into a soft ointment. When he applies it to a cut on his arm, a faint glow spreads across his skin, the wound closes slightly faster. It works, but he knows relying on this every time will be exhausting. Sitting back, he lets the frustration settle in. If he keeps fighting recklessly the way he did with the goblins and kobolds, he'll die long before the real apocalypse even starts. Raising his stats through battle isn't sustainable. He begins weighing alternatives, thinking about weapons that suit someone fighting alone. A bow demands space, a spear requires stamina, and every close-range weapon puts him in danger. As he runs through possibilities in his head, a single idea comes to him, something connected to a massive ship and an event from the game's storyline. Even if the exact scenario doesn't unfold in real life, the strange, precursor phenomenon tied to it might still appear. And if it does, he needs to be ready. That thought alone is enough to push him back into action. Early the next morning, he climbs to the rooftop to continue strengthening his home. Bags of mortar he ordered the previous night have already been delivered. Without wasting a second, he seals cracks, stabilizes weak points, and reinforces the walls with steady, practiced hands. Every improvement adds another layer of security to the fortress he's building for the days ahead. Later, he heads downstairs to pick up another delivery. As he bends to lift a package, someone calls out to him. It's Mi-kyung, the friendly hairdresser from next door. She smiles brightly, greeting him like it's the most natural thing in the world. She jokes that she's been seeing him a lot lately and admits, a little shyly, that she drops by his shop every day for tteokbokki. He apologizes awkwardly, flustered by the sudden friendliness. Her warm presence lightens the atmosphere around him, briefly reminding him of normal life, of moments untouched by fear and looming disaster. But even as he laughs along with her, a quiet truth sits heavy in his chest. Time is still ticking, and the world has no idea what's coming. Seong-ho apologizes with an awkward smile, explaining he's been busy remodeling his shop, and Mi-kyung teases him for neglecting himself, reminding him he used to visit her salon only once every 3 months, which makes him realize how long he's gone without a proper haircut. When she suggests cutting it now, he agrees. He needed shorter hair for future exploration anyway, so it's a good chance for a fresh start. Sitting in the salon chair with his long, overgrown hair draped around him, Mi-kyung places a cape around him and asks how he wants his hair cut. Only for him to reply bluntly, "Shave it all off." Surprised, she hesitates, and he explains he wants a fresh start. With renewed determination, she agrees enthusiastically to make it look as nice as possible. Then Mi-kyung brings up the sudden online trend about status windows appearing in real life, claiming that awakened people are mostly those who have played the game Survival Life, which makes Seong-ho freeze in place, struggling to stay calm. Intrigued and cautious, Seong-ho questions where she even got such detailed information, leaving her flustered. Before she can answer, a tattoo-covered man named Oh In-hak walks in, claiming he came to share information. His trait card humorously exposes his past. He once fought Seong-ho over loud singing, though he clearly doesn't recognize him at first. Mi-kyung proudly introduces him as part of her information-sharing team, the very group hunting for the mysterious gamer accused of monopolizing awakening knowledge. Seong-ho stiffens as In-hak loudly complains that this unknown gamer deleted his videos and ran away, and his group is planning to tracking that bastard down. While Mi-kyung nervously reminds him that tracking someone is illegal. In-hak dismisses her concerns, ranting dramatically, insisting it's all for public good, even pulling her into an uncomfortable side hug as he babbles about how the situation matches a case study exactly. Seong-ho, still stuck in the barber cape, silently watches the absurdity unfold, internally screaming as they passionately insult him without knowing it. When In-hak demands to know whether Mi-kyung will join their group, the atmosphere flips. Seong-ho rises slowly, telling him to leave now if he doesn't want a repeat of last time. The man's bravado collapses instantly, sweat pouring down his face as he retreats in embarrassment. Mi-kyung exhales in relief, still shaken, while Seong-ho suggests they exchange numbers for safety, quietly calling the man bad news. After returning home, Seong-ho sits at his computer and hesitates before searching for his username, Kimbap Lover. What he finds hits him like a punch: endless hate posts demanding his address, hackers offering to dox him, people calling him a selfish trash human. To make things worse, even the anonymous user who tried to share early game survival tips is being cursed out and mocked, as if anyone trying to help is automatically the enemy. Feeling drained and disgusted, Seong-ho turns off the computer, not mentally broken, but sick of people altogether. Yet strangely, instead of spiraling, his thoughts become sharper. Sitting in the dark, he takes a steady breath as clarity washes over him. He raises his hand, voice firm and resolved, and speaks the command, "Open portal." Immediately, blue light erupts around him, swirling into a glowing gateway, signaling the moment he stops running from the world's madness and starts preparing to face it head-on. For the next 2 days, Seong-ho throws himself completely into strengthening his hideout, using the non-stop labor as a way to drown out the weight of everything he's been facing. He mines limestone and igneous stone with a pickaxe, sparks flying around him as he swings with almost desperate intensity, and then mixes mortar with water, pouring and smoothing it carefully over the ground to solidify his underground base. When the work is finally done and he waits for the mortar to dry, he steps outside into the quiet night. Under the glow of the full moon, a cold realization settles into his heart: if the world is unjust, then he must fight injustice with injustice. He isn't a hero, nor does he owe the world anything. He's just one individual, and his only responsibility now is to survive. But the moment he turns around after making that resolution, the silence breaks. A sinister rattle echoes through the dark forest, and a skeletal monster, its spine twisted, eyes burning with yellow light, emerges from the shadows. A bone creeper. Seong-ho freezes for a split second, muttering in frustration before the creature charges at him with explosive force. Its shrill screech fills the air, shattering the calm as violent bursts of energy erupt around them. The monster's glowing skull lunges forward, its presence overwhelming and chaotic. As the bone creeper's attack detonated into a thunderous explosion, lighting up the forest like a battlefield. Kang Seong-ho crashes onto the cold forest ground, his body rolling across dirt and leaves as the shock from the bone creeper's explosion finally settles in. His ears ring and his vision spins, but somehow, he's still alive. Gasping, he lifts his trembling hand, staring at it in disbelief. A few moments earlier, the skeletal monster had appeared out of nowhere, glowing violently as it prepared to self-destruct. Seong-ho had barely managed to dive away before the blast swallowed everything behind him, and now, surrounded by silence and drifting smoke, he struggles to understand how he survived at all. When he forces himself upright, he notices shattered bone fragments scattered across the ground, evidence of the monster's complete destruction. That's when it clicks: he lived only because he had gained just enough distance before the explosion hit. And the proof of the encounter still remains lodged painfully in his shoulder. Exhausted and shaking, he activates his status window, wincing as the glowing blue screen appears. His stats have dropped sharply, but nothing seems broken or ruptured. His level has increased, his points have risen, meaning even something as chaotic as a near-death explosion still counts as progress in this twisted system. Overwhelmed, he mutters that his brain can't process anything anymore, barely managing to whisper the command that opens his portal home. Back in his room, he immediately begins treating himself. He lays out medical supplies, grits his teeth, and pulls the jagged bone fragment straight out of his wound, screaming as blood spills down his chest. The pain is unbearable, burning like fire under his skin. He forces himself to apply the ointment he made from guaca powder to stop the bleeding, then wraps the injury tightly with a clean bandage. Only after securing the final layer does he finally breathe out a shaky sigh. After extracting the bone fragments and bandaging himself, he collapsed onto his bed, fighting to stay conscious. After barely surviving the bone creeper's explosion, Kang Seong-ho collapses on his couch and falls asleep instantly, as if he fainted the moment he reached safety. When dawn breaks, warm sunlight fills the room, but Seong-ho is still curled up in pain, his entire torso wrapped in thick bandages. Summoning his status window, the familiar blue panel flickers to life, showing his weakened stats but confirming his emergency treatments worked. Still, one question gnaws at him: where did the bone creeper come from? The forest is massive, he reasons, so a sudden monster appearance isn't impossible, but it makes him reconsider whether he should start investing stat points into perception to detect threats before they ambush him again. As he drinks water to steady his mind, he reviews what he knows about Seola. There are only two ways to raise stats: gaining experience or obtaining stat-attached items. But getting those items isn't simple. In Seola, the game was notoriously brutal. Valuable equipment was only dropped by monsters far stronger than the player or during rare events. The memory of countless grinding sessions flashes through his mind, fighting giant ogres, praying desperately for even one agility bonus, only to receive useless skills like wildness from high-ranking monsters whose abilities didn't match his playstyle at all. Now that he's trapped in a world that behaves exactly like that game, he needs a strategy. With his current condition, he can't defeat high-tier monsters alone, and items will never simply fall into his lap. The only remaining option is to search for clues in the game's backstory. Sitting at his computer, he plugs in his external drive and loads the survival life lore archives he remembered from before. On the screen, the title screen glows faintly as he recalls the events leading up to Nzambi's fall, precursor phenomena that may now be repeating in real life. Back at his desk, Kang Seong-ho scrolls through the old survival life backstory, analyzing every fragment with sharp focus as the blue glow of the monitor highlights his tired eyes. According to the game lore, he recalls, there is a slim chance, just a sliver of hope, that items can be obtained before the apocalypse begins, but only if the precursor phenomena in real life match the game perfectly. That means the timing of strong monster appearances must align exactly as they once did in the virtual world. With a tense breath, he navigates to the History section of the game's archives, and the screen fills with memories of horrifying monsters rampaging across city streets. After reading for what feels like hours, he identifies three major precursor events. The first two are vague, incomplete. The third is clearer, a Russian ship incident. But the earliest confirmed phenomenon is one he knows well, the empty Red Orc. The files describe it vividly. On June 26 at 1700 hours, an orc corpse was discovered at a campsite, originally hidden by government suppression until a news outlet leaked the story. Realizing the monster had died on the afternoon of the 26th, Seong-ho calculates backward. If he wants to catch that orc alive, he must arrive before dawn on the 26th, meaning he has to leave on the night of the 25th. Panic and urgency collide in his chest as he pushes back from the desk, muttering that there's no time left, he needs to prepare immediately. But just as he's about to stand, his phone vibrates. The caller ID flashes, Miss Mi-kyung. Confused about why she would call so late, he answers and soon finds himself sitting at a quiet cafe, where Mi-kyung nervously sits across from him, her eyes studying him with concern. She hesitates, admitting she noticed something strange, his stiff expression, his long-sleeved shirt in sweltering weather. Seong-ho laughs awkwardly, trying to brush it off, hiding the truth of the injury beneath his clothes. She leans forward anxiously, mentioning their last appointment and how the trouble with Mr. Oh In-hak made her think something dangerous might have happened. Hearing this, Seong-ho reassures her he's fine, though he admits he does dislike Oh In-hak. He recalls an incident from last winter, describing how Oh In-hak caused a scene with an illegally modified tow truck and even picked fights with elderly passers-by, revealing the man's rotten character. After sharing his frustration about Oh In-hak, Seong-ho notices Mi-kyung staring at him with a hesitant, almost nervous expression. She shifts slightly, gathering courage before quietly admitting she had no idea the man was that terrible, clearly shaken by the revelation. Seong-ho casually continues, explaining that the jerk caused trouble every dawn, then suddenly asks why she called him out today. Mi-kyung freezes for a moment before leaning in close, her cheeks faintly red, whispering something she seems embarrassed to say out loud. She claims she is actually awakened. Seong-ho is stunned for a moment, wondering why she would reveal something so dramatic to him. Still, he decides to play along and avoid questioning her too deeply, smiling politely as he tells her he's a little envious since he hasn't awakened yet. Mi-kyung sighs in relief, apologizing for lying before, saying it weighed heavily on her conscience. He reassures her warmly, telling her he doesn't misunderstand, he knows she isn't the type to deceive someone maliciously. The tension between them eases, and Mi-kyung visibly relaxes, while Seong-ho thanks her for always sharing information with him despite her busy schedule. As he stretches with a soft laugh, he admits he feels even better thanks to her company. The stress from remodeling his shop had him on edge, but her visit helped him unwind. Encouraged by his attitude, she blushes as he jokingly bids farewell to survival life, saying he plans to study the game in more depth now. After she leaves, Seong-ho sits alone on his bed, reflecting on the encounter with a fond, quiet smile, thinking that meeting people with good character truly makes a difference. Feeling mentally refreshed, he pulls out his phone and begins preparing for his next mission. He purchases a state-of-the-art drone to scout the forest and rents a car for the upcoming trip, finalizing all the contracts before settling into bed. To ensure he is in peak condition for the mission, he forces himself to sleep early. The next morning, as sunlight cracks through the cave-like workshop he built, Seong-ho immediately begins crafting the materials needed to hunt the orc. Surrounded by crates of ignis stones, he sits at his workbench and carefully crushes each stone into smaller fragments. Kang Seong-ho continues refining the final components for his upcoming orc hunt, working with the intensity of someone who has no room for mistakes. In his dimly lit workshop, he crushes ignis stones with a hammer, each strike sending sudden flames bursting upward, forcing him to pull back as fire licks dangerously close to his hands. He wipes the sweat from his brow, reminding himself that one wrong hit could incinerate the entire batch, yet he persists because the explosive force these stones provide is vital for capturing the orc. Once the ignis mixture is complete, he grabs a glowing yellow lumine stone, and bright flashes erupt every few seconds, stabbing at his eyes and making them sting, but he grits his teeth and powers through, knowing the material's performance justifies the discomfort. After finishing the base preparations, he begins assembling the compound traps, mixing sugar, gasoline, and organic solvents in precise order, then combining the ignis powder and resin before adding a hardener to solidify everything. When the coordinates for his private portal are fixed, he installs a sturdy desk inside the cavern and steps through the shimmering blue gateway back into reality, leaving two large metal containers behind, one marked with red tape and the other with blue. Outside, the world is dark and quiet. Seong-ho walks to his rented car, lifts the trunk, and reveals neatly packed equipment, duffel bags, explosives, fuel canisters, and all the tools required for his plan. A rush of satisfaction lights up his face as he leans back in the driver's seat, marveling at the smooth interior of the high-end car he splurged on. His excitement is clear in the wide grin stretching across his face. For once, something feels luxurious and rewarding in the middle of his brutal preparations. After confirming that everything is loaded, he grips the steering wheel and whispers to himself that it's finally time to leave. The engine growls to life as he pulls out of the narrow alleyway, headlights slicing through the night rain. His destination is fixed in his mind, Yiri, the place where the first orc will appear. As his car speeds into the darkness, tires hissing against wet pavement, Seong-ho's mission becomes fully real. The hunt has begun, and the future of the apocalypse may depend on what he does next.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment part 2 if you want the next part.